Most people think a marriage ends with a fight. For me, it ended with a play button. My wife Emily didn't know that every time she laughed at me in her car, I was listening. She called me useful. She called me boring. She thought I was just a bank account for her secret life with her boss. But as an IT consultant, I know one thing for sure. You can't delete the truth once it's been recorded. Tonight, at her parents' 30th anniversary dinner, the whole family is about to hear exactly what Emily thinks of us. And trust me, she never saw this system wipe coming. Part 1. The Code of a Marriage. My name is Daniel. I'm a senior ET consultant. In my world, everything is a system. Servers, networks, database. They all follow a logic. If there's a bug, you find it. If there's a security breach, you patch it. I spent 10 years thinking my marriage to Emily was the most secure system I'd ever built. Emily was the front end of our life. She was a marketing director, vibrant, social, and effortlessly beautiful. She was the one who picked the color of our curtains and hosted the neighborhood dinner parties. I was the back end, the one who made sure the bills were paid, the cars were serviced, and the future was funded. We were the envy of our circle, the anchor and the sail, people called us. But as any programmer will tell you, the most catastrophic system failures don't happen with a bang. They start with a single, tiny line of corrupted code that stays hidden for months. Part 2. The first latency issues. The corruption started when Emily's company hired a new regional manager, Ryan. At first, he was just a name mentioned over dinner. Then, he became the reason for the 9 p.m. conference calls. Then, the reason for the emergency networking weekends. I watched as Emily began to change. The woman who used to greet me with a hug now walked through the door with her eyes glued to her screen, her thumb flicking nervously across the glass. The latency in our relationship grew. She stopped asking about my day. Our conversations became transactional, brief, cold, and strictly about the house or the dog. I started noticing things. The scent of a cologne that smelled like expensive tobacco and leather. Nothing like the fresh citrus scent I used to wear. The way she would jump when I walked into the room while she was on her phone. My IT brain was screaming. Security breach detected. Part 3. Accessing the forbidden data. The breaking point happened on a rainy Tuesday. Emily had fallen asleep on the sofa, a glass of half-finished wine on the table next to her. Her phone buzzed. Once, twice, 5 times. Normally, I respected her privacy like a sacred firewall, but the gut feeling was too strong to ignore. I picked up the device. I didn't even need to hack it. I was the one who had helped her set up the biometric backup years ago. The screen flickered to life, and my heart began to pound against my ribs like a trapped animal. The messages were from R. I'm still thinking about how you looked in that hotel room today, one read. I hate that you have to go home to him, read another. Emily's reply sent a chill through my bones. Don't worry, he's usually asleep or in his office by the time I get back. He's so predictable, it's almost sad. Predictable. That word hurt more than the affair itself. She didn't just betray me, she looked down on me. Part 4. The silent debugging. Most men would have woken her up right then. There would have been screaming, crying, and thrown plates. But as an IT professional, I knew that emotional outbursts don't win battles. Evidence does. I spent the next 48 hours in a state of cold, calculated fury. I didn't confront her. I didn't even change my tone. I kissed her goodbye the next morning and told her to have a great day with the team. While she was at work, I used my expertise to set up a surveillance network. I didn't do anything illegal. I simply placed a high-fidelity, voice-activated recorder hidden inside the passenger seat of the car that was registered in my name. Then, I waited. I sat in my office, staring at the audio waves on my monitor, waiting for the system to catch the bug in the act. Part 5. Listening to the Corruption. 3 days later, I hit the jackpot, or the death blow. The audio file was crystal clear. I could hear the sound of the car door closing, the click of seatbelts, and then the laughter. It was a flirtatious, giggling sound I hadn't heard from Emily in years. He actually bought the late meeting excuse again? Ryan's voice was deep, smug. Of course, Emily replied. I told you he's a creature of habit. As long as the house is clean and the Netflix is on, Daniel doesn't ask questions. Then Ryan asked the question that made my blood boil. When are you going to tell him it's over? I'm tired of hiding. Emily sighed. Soon, Ryan. But he's useful right now. We're in the middle of that kitchen renovation, and his bonus is paying for it. Let him finish the house, then I'll file. He's so boring, he'll probably just apologize for not being enough. I sat in the dark for 3 hours after hearing that. I wasn't her husband. I was a contractor, a bank account, a useful idiot. Part 6. The Anniversary Tribute. The perfect opportunity presented itself 10 days later. Emily's parents, George and Martha, were celebrating their 30th wedding anniversary. They were old-school, traditional people who worshiped the idea of a perfect family. The party was held at a prestigious country club. Everyone was there. Aunts, uncles, business partners, and of course the close family friend and star manager, Ryan. The room was filled with the clinking of champagne glasses and the smell of expensive lilies. Emily was wearing a stunning black dress, playing the part of the devoted daughter and loving wife to perfection. She kept her hand on my arm, leaning in to whisper sweet things for the crowd to see. It was the best performance I'd ever witnessed. Halfway through the night, it was time for the speeches. Emily's father gave a moving toast about 30 years of honesty and trust. When he sat down, the room was filled with warm applause. I stood up, holding a glass. If I could just have everyone's attention, I said, my voice echoing through the hall. I have prepared a special audio-visual tribute to the kind of loyalty we have in this family. Part 7. The Final System Wipe. The room went quiet. Emily smiled at me, thinking I had made a slideshow of our vacations. I walked over to the sound system, which I had already calibrated earlier that afternoon. I didn't play a video. I didn't show photos. I simply pressed play on the audio file from the car. The sound of Emily's giggles filled the ballroom. At first, people looked confused. Then her voice came through the high-end speakers, loud and clear. Daniel is useful right now. He's so boring, He'll probably just apologize for not being enough. The silence that followed was absolute. You could hear a pin drop on the carpeted floor. Emily's face didn't just turn pale, it turned gray. She looked like a ghost. Ryan, who was sitting 2 tables away, stood up so fast his chair toppled over. I let the recording play for 3 full minutes. I let every aunt, uncle, and her own father hear her describe how she was using me for a kitchen renovation while sleeping with her boss. When the recording ended, I didn't scream. I just looked at her. I'm sorry, Emily. I guess I was too predictable to keep quiet tonight. Part 8. The System Shutdown. Karma. The aftermath was a total collapse. Her father, a man of fierce pride, was so disgusted he refused to even look at her as she was escorted out of the club in tears. But the data didn't stop there. I had already sent a copy of the recording to the HR department of their firm. Within 48 hours, both Emily and Ryan were invited to resign for violating the company's strict policy on manager-employee fraternization. The useful husband wasn't so useful anymore. Since the house was in my name and bought with an inheritance before we were married, the divorce was swift. She moved from our 4-bedroom house into a tiny, cramped apartment on the edge of the city. Ryan, he disappeared the moment the scandal broke. He didn't want a partner, he wanted a secret. Reflection, the silence of the truth. People ask me if I feel guilty for ruining her life in front of her entire family. I tell them the same thing I tell my clients. I didn't break the system. I just exposed the bugs that were already there. Betrayal thrives in the dark. It grows in the silence of the partner who chooses to look away. I chose to turn on the lights. Emily thought I was boring because I was stable. She thought I was predictable because I was loyal. But the funny thing about engineers is that we know how to wait. We know how to build a case. And we know that the most powerful revenge isn't a loud argument. It's the cold, hard truth, played back at a high volume for the world to hear. Emily wanted a life of excitement, but she forgot that excitement built on lies is just a house of cards. She lost her job, her home, and the respect of the people who loved her most. As for me, I've learned that being predictable isn't a weakness. It's a strength when you're building a life of integrity. If you think Emily got exactly what she deserved, hit that like button and subscribe to Karma After Cheating for more stories of justice served. Remember, the truth doesn't need a loud voice. It just needs to be heard by the right people. Thanks for watching.